CNN original series called Declassified: Untold Stories of American Spies.
Ow!
This series will premiere on CNN this Sunday night at 10 p.m. And as I said, it's 8 episodes. You know, one of the things that we're so proud of at CNN is obviously we're known for covering breaking news and unfortunately terrible tragedies like the one that we're currently covering in Orlando. But there's another part to CNN, which are these original series that have become a real important part of what the network is. And that entire area is under the tremendous leadership of Amy Intellis and her team. So I want to thank Amy. So Declassified is, as I hope you know by now, hosted by an incredible man, former U.S. Congressman and the former chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, Mr. Mike Rogers. And we are just thrilled and honored that Mike is such an important part of CNN and so proud of what he's done for this country and what he continues to do all the time. Each episode of this series features a newly declassified mission that is told firsthand by the agents who lived those missions, providing viewers with unprecedented access to the riveting and secret world of espionage.
Mike Rogers, why did you decide to do this series Declassified?
I had a great run on the Intelligence Committee for the United States, including my 4 years as chairman. And I had the bird's eye view for really tremendous people doing incredible things. And one of the things I never thought happened, no offense to CNN and other news outlets, the story never quite came out right because they were always shackled by classification. They could never tell the whole story. They could never really defend themselves in a way that I thought was appropriate. So one of the things I did when I left the chairmanship was think, is there a way that we can tell that story? Can you get to know someone like Marty Peterson? Or even a Marcus Kelton or Oleg, in a way that you don't get to see normally, where they can tell their story, and as you can see, it's an extraordinary story, and it had profound impact on our ability to collect intelligence. So I had the great fortune to meet Amy Intellis. I was a little nervous, mainly because she's a big cheese at CNN. I didn't know it at the time. I do now. Amy, forgive me for that. And I tried to find out, could I do this in a way that didn't steal the honor, the glory, and the commitment of these people who are doing really incredible things for our country. Amy got it. Jeff got it right away. I mean, this was, I think, the quickest series of meetings because they too wanted to be able to share these people's personal stories doing professional things for the country. And we met Dominique Hoffman, who was the producer, all right, as the Energizer Bunny of directors and executive producers. For those of you who know her, you would snicker right there at that. So that's why I did it. That's why we thought we could pull this off. And I'll tell you that all of the episodes will grip you in these personal stories from the FBI to Homeland security cases. The NSA has got a flavor in there as well. So we tried to pick the cases that we thought could be interesting, number one, and B, the personalities of the people involved could carry the story. And I think we succeeded in doing that. Certainly this episode with a great American who really was a pathfinder, I think justifies all of the work, all of the effort from CNN and all three media, Dominique Hoffman, and all of the players. And thanks for having the courage to tell your story. We appreciate that. So that's why I did it.
Good explanation. All right, Marty, you're the star of the show. So we're going to go backwards a little bit. Why did you decide you wanted to become a clandestine CIA case officer?
Well, it started in Laos with my first husband. He was a CIA paramilitary officer, John Peterson. And his work there ended tragically when he died in a helicopter crash. Not having a life at 27 years old, I came back to Washington and several friends suggested that I apply as a case officer, be in operations, follow the path that my husband had started. So I think my mother would have said at 4 years old, I was the same way. I love a challenge, and I was perhaps evening the score when I went to Moscow and became a case officer there, because his helicopter was shot down by a Russian AK-47. So there was some energy there. Plus, we were all raised in the world of nuclear threat. We used to sit under our desks at 7 years old worried about nuclear bombs hitting our schools. So there was a lot of energy there that I had from growing up in the 50s and of course my husband dying. And the role of a case officer is not sex specific. I mean, if you learn the trade craft, if you learn your job, you can do it. And I think that I empowered myself to believe that. And everyone around me thought I could do the job. So that in short.
And you learned Russian. You went through a training period.
Right.
What was your cover? What was your diplomatic cover? As you were really a spy for the United States. What was your day job?
My day job was working in the embassy. I worked in an office surrounded by Soviet women. I can't really be more specific than that, but that is the essence of it.
Why can't you be more specific?
It would endanger people doing the same job as they do, doing the same job I did as doing it now.
Who was the American who betrayed Trigon?
It wasn't American. It was Karl Kocher, and he was a Czech citizen who emigrated to the U.S.
And how did he learn about that? This operation, Trigon's operation?
You know, Wolf, I've never found out. I never asked. It's we're very compartmented in the CIA, and I never found out how he.
All right, maybe Mark can tell us.
Karl Kocher.
Oh, if I don't know, something with that.
No, I know you know.
Do share.
Karl Kocher was a Czech illegal, an illegal officer, and for those that don't know, an illegal is somebody who works in intelligence without diplomatic immunity. Most intelligence officers going abroad have diplomatic immunity. He did not. He came to the United States. He came to the United States as an immigrant and was hired by Voice of America and then CIA. And he worked in a transcription unit in what was then Soviet division. That transcription unit processed some of the audio that came from Bogota when Trigon was first recruited or targeted. And that's how they came to know of the League, and ultimately that led to Trigon. So it was Karl Kocher. He was working in CIA.
And when did you find out what happened to Karl Kocher?
Much later. Which the interesting thing about the story is that Marty, she talked a little bit about it, but having to bear the burden of not knowing whether it was something that she did wrong that led to the death of an agent. The emotional bond, which Jim Olson talked a little bit about between the handler and the agent is palpable. People don't think that when they're thinking about spies, but really it's an affair of honor for the people that are working with them and to protect them and do everything we can to protect their lives. And ultimately, in this case, we lost an agent, but he, in the same time, it was a very successful operation. I don't want to say he knew the risks, but he did, and he chose to go out the way that he chose to go out. And he died honorably in service of freedom. And Marty did everything she could to protect him.
It was never her fault that Trigon was betrayed. So Karl Kocher, what happened to him?
Ultimately, he was arrested and was exchanged on Atlantic Aruba, the British spies, for Anton Sharansky in January 1986. So he and his wife were both sent back. So that's there were 4 major spy exchanges on the British spies, and he was one of them.
Amazing. Oleg, did you know about this as it was going on? You were working for the KGB.
Well, I supervised hundreds of foreign sources, so I'm not sure I know too well this particular story. But let me just tell you about 2 stories which I do remember, and I think it would be interesting for everyone. It goes back to 1941, just 2 weeks before Nazi Germany invaded the the Soviet Union. A source close to the, well, he was an American actually, young American. Well, he reported to one of the KGB assets, I mean Russians, that Hitler is going to invade Russia on June 22nd of 41. It was immediately reported to Joseph Stalin, the Soviet leader at the time. Stalin was furious. He is a liar. We had a treaty of peace and friendship with Germany. Kick him out from Moscow. And he was kicked out from Moscow. Just 2 weeks later, Germany invaded Russia. Many years later, when I came to the United States, I found this man, I mean, the one I mentioned, he held a very responsible position in the United States, and I thought that, well, it's time to resume a relationship. So I called him over the public phone, of course, and best regards from, and I mentioned the name of the people he knew. And his response was, if you call me again, I'll call the FBI and they will kick you out from this country.
Did you fear you're going to wind up in a Soviet prison for the rest of your life?
No, I didn't, because I had diplomatic immunity working there. All of us that worked there in the embassy had diplomatic immunity, which means that there was an agreement between countries that if we were caught doing anything that the host government believed was inappropriate, we would be sent out of the U.S., out of Moscow or out of...
So you were just held, what, overnight, just for one day, is that right?
I was arrested at 10:30 and I went back to the embassy at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Not fast.
Oh, it was very fast, yeah. And I left the next day. What's interesting, I was arrested Friday night. I got back to the States Sunday. Monday, I met the director of CIA, and Tuesday, I met the President of the United States. That's kind of an odd, For a covert CIA officer, it was a little different, yes.
Pretty dramatic.
Yes.
Marty, you were the first woman to serve as a clandestine CIA officer, is that right?
In Moscow, yes.
In Moscow. There were others in other capitals.
Absolutely, yes.
I assume there's a lot more now.
Yes.
And they're working all over the place.
All over the world.
Do they come to you and ask you for some mentoring and some advice?
It's interesting, Wolf. During my career, I rarely shared this story with anyone in my offices because I didn't want to be known by the label of the woman that was arrested. I wanted to stand on my own in each job that I had. And in CIA, we moved through a lot of different positions, a lot of different areas. So I never wanted to be the woman that was arrested.